Okay, let's dive into this explainer. Today we're taking a really deep look into what I can only describe as a civilizational masterpiece. We're drawing directly from C. Rajagopalachari's magnificent retelling to figure out what the Ramayana actually is. We're going to break down the core architecture of this incredible text, and trust me, it is absolutely fascinating.
But before we get into the history, the epic battles, and the characters, I want to ask you a pretty profound philosophical question. What does it mean to live rightly? Really think about that for a second. Keep it front and center in your mind as we go, because the source material we're unpacking today isn't just some ancient adventure story or a fairy tale, It's an incredibly complex moral universe that was designed specifically to test and answer that exact question.
So to answer that, we've got to establish our baseline vocabulary. And the biggest word here is Dharma. It's the eternal principle of living rightly. It encompasses your duty, your virtue, and the moral law. Grasping this concept of Dharma is literally the absolute key to unlocking the true depth of the Ramayana. Every single decision made by every character we're going to look at, it's weighed heavily, and I mean heavily, on the scales of Dharma.
Let's start with the big picture, the great Sanskrit epic.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can look at this through a conceptual funnel, starting at the widest possible layer. The Ramayana is one of the two foundational ancient Sanskrit epics, right alongside the Mahabharata. It's traditionally attributed to the sage Valmiki. But here is the coolest part. The original poets didn't just invent these stories out of thin air. They built them out of the inherited bricks of national memory. And because of that, the epic spread like wildfire. We see brilliant retellings across centuries in all the languages of India. You've got Kamban's Tamil version, Tulsidas's Hindi version, and for our explainer today, we're using the highly acclaimed English version brought to modern audiences by C. Rajagopalachari.
Moving deeper into our funnel, we hit Section 2, the journey of Rama.
Let's just break down the title itself. Rama is the Prince of Ayodhya. In the tradition, he is the absolute embodiment of virtue and an avatar of the Supreme Being taking human form. Then you have Ramayana, which translates directly to the journey or the path. So, put it together, and literally, it's the journey of Rama. But as you'll see, this journey is definitely twofold. Yeah, it's a physical journey into exile in the forest, but way more importantly, it's a deeply spiritual journey that tests the absolute limits of moral duty.
Now, our source makes a very specific, absolutely crucial distinction right here. The Ramayana is not history, it's not a biography, it is a part of Hindu mythology. The author emphasizes that if you try to read this merely as a historical ledger of facts, you are entirely missing the point. It's a mythological framework, and that framework is essential for understanding a much broader spiritual attitude toward life.
Which brings us to the third layer, the universe of Dharma. Okay, to truly get Hindu Dharma, you have to know this character matrix. Think of it like a moral chessboard. Rama represents the ideal man. His defining action? He cheerfully, and I mean cheerfully, renounces his absolute right to the throne just to honor his father's word. Then there's Sita, the total embodiment of compassion and purity. She endures terrifying captivity with completely unyielding faith. You've got Bharata, representing a spotless, unselfish mind. He actively refuses the crown that's handed to him and chooses only to rule as Rama's devoted deputy. And then, on the flip side, we have Ravana, the Rakshasa king. He represents self-indulgent vanity and arrogance, yielding to his lust and completely ignoring all bounds of right conduct. Together, they embody our highest moral values and our most fatal flaws.
But here's the thing. These characters don't just exist in a vacuum. They are forced into the most agonizing moral dilemmas imaginable. Take Ahalya's error, which teaches us that freedom from the consequences of sin requires genuine, deep penitence. Or look at King Dasharatha's incredible anguish. He's trapped in a deadly conflict between keeping a king's truthful promise and a father's desperate love for his son. Queen Kaikeyi's tragic fall shows us how even a pure heart can be completely corrupted by bad counsel, fate, and jealousy. And then Vibhishana, who has to make the excruciating choice to abandon his own sinful brother, Ravana, just to stand on the side of Dharma. You see, the ancient sages deliberately crafted these agonizing, no-win situations to wake people up to the devastating dangers of adharma, of unrighteousness. Let's look at how this all functions in Section 4, the fruit of mythology.
So you might be wondering, why use mythology to teach these lessons? Why not just write down a list of rules and be done with it? Well, Rajagopalachari gives us this stunning visual metaphor. He says, mythology is as necessary for religion and national culture as the skin and the skeleton that preserve a fruit with its juice and its taste. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how this text works on human psychology.
Let's break that metaphor down into the anatomy of a culture.
You have the form and you have the substance. The form, that's the skin and the skeleton. It's the thrilling epic narrative, the epic battles, the magic, the demons, the holy figures. It's what grabs your attention. Then you have the substance, the juice and the taste of the fruit. That is the stable spiritual foundation, the life-giving inspiration. That is the Dharma. The source argues so beautifully here that you literally cannot preserve or convey the spiritual substance without the protective, engaging framework of the mythological story holding it all together.
And this idea builds into the broader structure of ancient belief systems. Our source points out 3 necessary strands of ancient religions. Step 1 is philosophy. That's the logical, ethical pursuit of truth. Step 2 is rituals, the actual ceremonies and practices of faith. But here's the kicker. Philosophy and rituals alone, they're completely insufficient. You need step 3, mythology. The narratives are the indispensable third strand that you need to actually bring the philosophy to life and truly grasp the spiritual attitude of a people. It's like a 3-legged stool. Take away the mythology, and the whole thing just falls over.
Finally, we reach section 5, a civilizational blueprint. This brings us to the very bottom of our conceptual funnel, where we can zoom out and look at the massive macro impact of the Ramayana. We aren't just looking at a text anymore, we are looking at an architectural guide for society. The author describes this epic as the records of the mind and spirit of our forefathers who cared for the good ever so much more than for the pleasant. Reading this source material literally takes us back in time. It lets us live with our ancient forebears, listening to their grand voices, reminding us to prioritize the ultimate good over just chasing petty, pleasant, short-term achievements in the material world.
So the crucial point is captured powerfully right here. Let us keep ever in our minds the fact that it is the Ramayana and the Mahabharata that bind our vast numbers together as one people, despite caste, space, and language that seemingly divide them. This text entirely transcends being a mere story. For India, it has literally acted as the unifying glue of an entire civilization for millennia. It's the shared ethical language.
Which leaves us with a massive, mind-bending thought to reflect on as we conclude this explainer. If a single mythological journey can bind millions together across millennia, how do the stories we choose to tell today shape our own ethical blueprints? The Ramayana proves the immense, enduring power of storytelling in forging the moral universe we live in. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating text. Keep asking the big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.